Hey, I'm Josh. Welcome to Red Decks Win. This is the first episode of a podcast for the best color in Magic the Gathering, red. I enjoy lots of things about the game Magic, but when I'm checking spoilers out or I'm looking through old cards, I look mostly for the red ones. Most of my favorite cards are red. My favorite decks are mono red. I can't be alone in this, so that's the point of this podcast. Get a casual Reds Mage's perspective on things like the cards themselves. We might talk specific decks, red across multiple formats. Maybe we'll get to some lore in different episodes, but we'll get there when we get there. And another thing is we might want to focus on budget and card cost too. Since I'm a budget player, and I think that's in common with a decent amount of red players, usually the red deck is one of the cheapest to get into a format with. And full disclosure too, so you don't think I'm Mr. Expert, I started playing Magic the Gathering around when Origins was released, and I took like a 3-year break from like core set 2019 until now. So I've been doing some catch-up this year. I'm not Mr. Breaking News either, I don't think. Last week, you probably have already seen these early spoilers we've got for Innistrad Midnight Hunt. That set will be coming out in September. Let's refresh on the one red card that was shown, and that card was Play with Fire. Play with Fire is 1 red mana for an instant. It's an uncommon card. Play with Fire deals 2 damage to any target. If a player is dealt damage this way, scry 1. I am happy to see a strictly better shock that is going to be in the format post-rotation. I would have been happy just to see a shock. I mean, shock's not great, but I was scared they weren't even going to have something. That's a weird fear I always have. There's not going to be like a 1 mana deal even 2 damage to the face spell. Right now we got Frostbite from Kaldheim, which can be a bolt for creatures and for planeswalkers if you got the right snow permanents. It can't go face though. I'm all about going face. You need a way to finish off the game sometimes in the red aggro decks. Even better than being able to go face from one card though, is if multiple cards have that. And that's what I'm hoping for here, because we have a design incentive on this card to go face. You get a scry out of it that way. So we're getting a reward for direct damage, and if you're like me and you like burn, that's a great sign. It's not as exciting as having a new keyword like we did in Ravnica Allegiance with the Rakdos cards that had the spectacle cost. I am having my fingers crossed that maybe we're going to get some kind of face damage matters deck that's Devils themed or something in Innistrad Midnight Hunt. Side note, if you're like me and you're not the ultimate rules authority, it does say if a player is dealt damage, you get a scry. And that, so if you do it to a planeswalker, planeswalkers aren't players anymore. They haven't been since 2018. Cards from before that now read any target that used to say target creature or player. And you got those planeswalker specific cards these days too that say target creature or planeswalker. So you can target a planeswalker with this 2 damage, but you're not going to be able to get a scry off of it. So let's talk about the evergreen mechanic of scry, because I had a fun failed experiment I did with a scry deck in mono red a few years back. The first red mana scry card I messed around with was when I started back in Magic Origins, and it was Titan Strength, a combat trick in my first standard deck. Titan Strength is 1 red for an instant at common. Target creature gets +3/+1 until end of turn. Scry 1. So it's not as versatile as some direct damage, but having 3 more power on a creature early in the game, plus getting that scry to help you get rid of lands you don't need or get another land drop when you really need it, that was really good at the time. These days, Titan Strength ain't exactly, though, seeing play and everything. Though I wish it was. Maybe I'll find a commander deck to slip it into or something. You don't ever see it, though, as a 4-of in any Eternal formats. So then let's fast forward a year or 2 in my life to like 2017, and I was making my entry into playing the Modern format with, of course, a mono-red burn deck. Still, I mostly just play mono-red burn in Modern, by the way. So So online, I'm looking for hidden gems that I can maybe pick up for cheap, improve my deck with. I came across the forbidden fruit of any burn deck, Thunderous Wrath. Thunderous Wrath costs 4 generic mana and 2 red. It is an instant that reads Thunderous Wrath deals 5 damage to target creature or player, but what we really care about is the miracle cost of just 1 red mana. The miracle mechanic works like this. You may cast this card for its miracle cost when you draw it, if it's the first card you drew this turn. I saw that 1 red mana next to the words 5 damage, and I was sold. My best burn spells in the deck, they cost 1. They're dealing 3 damage, like Lightning Bolt, Lava Spike, Rift Bolt. But you're telling me I can be getting even more damage from my 1 red mana. Plus the art on this card, it looks awesome. It reminds me of the terrible movie Into the Storm, which has a scene with like a fiery tornado. So you have this fire tornado in the art, and then you also have the electricity and some lightning looks to be coming down out of the sky too. So usually on burn spells, you're only getting one of those. You either get electricity or lightning coming out of the sky on the card, or you get fire. You get both. You know, it represents the perfect burn spell. However, this card, it's not very good. Now, the miracle mechanic that came from Avacyn Restored seems to be an interesting mixed bag, where some of it not playable, but it's got some playable stuff that since it rotated out of Standard. Maybe it was great or terrible in Standard, I don't know. Avacyn Restored was a little before my time. It gives its name to the Legacy deck Miracles, which only has Terminus and Entreat the Angels as the only miracle cards in it. And I don't know how well it's doing these days since Sensei's Divining Top was banned in Legacy. But I'm no expert on Miracle Legacy. I'm more of a mono red player. Some Miracle cards that have been printed over the years have seen reprints in Commander. And besides Thunderous Wrath, there are 2 other red cards that have that Miracle mechanic. We've got Bonfire of the Damned. XX and 1 red. You get a sorcery spell. Bonfire of the Damned deals X damage to target player and each creature he or she controls. Miracle cost is X and red mana, so you get rid of an X with the miracle draw. Reforge the Soul is 3 generic mana and 2 red for a sorcery. Each player discards his or her hand, then draws 7 cards. Miracle cost is 1 generic and 1 red. Nice to have a Wheel of Fortune mechanic on there. So Bonfire of the Damned was printed at Mythic. It costs $2 these days. Reforge the Soul is the most valuable of the Miracle red cards at $10, and it was printed at Rare. Thunderous Wrath was printed at Uncommon. It's only worth 15 cents. Now, the rarity and price of a card don't always reflect their playability, but it gives you a decent idea of if something's seeing play or not. Thunderous Wrath did even have a reprint, too, at Common in Modern Masters from 2017. Thunderous Wrath just doesn't see play. Here's how I tried to use it, though, back when I made my early Modern decks. Let's go over the problems with this card that I was trying to work around. Thunderous Wrath, it is dead in your opening hand. You're almost never going to get to 6 lands as a burn player in Modern. If you do, something's gone terribly wrong, and you might even have multiple cards in hand that you want to cast all at once instead of just casting 1 Thunderous Wrath. Not only can Wrath not be in your opening hand, though, you can't draw it on your first draw step, or it's going to be dead again. Remember, to use the Miracle cost, you have to be able to cast that card when you draw it, not just the turn you draw it on. So, you don't have a land in play, obviously, on your first draw if you're going second. So, you draw this card, abracadabra, you got another dead card. And my understanding of the math is you're more likely to have it be in your opener or as your first draw than as that Miracle cost draw that you really want later in the day. So we ain't Legacy Miracles here. We're playing Mono Red Burn. How are we going to increase our chances of Thunderous Wrath being right on top when we need it without some kind of blue draw and scry or Sensei's Divining Top or something like that? The answer is Scrying, because it doesn't just draw us the card whenever, because it's got to be, Miracle cards have to be your first draw of the turn, but it does help us rearrange our deck a little. So what do we scry with in a mono-red burn deck? I was using Spark Jolt and Magma Jet. Spark Jolt is 1 red mana for an instant. Spark Jolt deals 1 damage to target creature or player, scry 1, and Magma Jet is double that. 1 generic and 1 red for an instant. Magma Jet deals 2 damage to any target, scry 2. So, you might be noticing a problem with having these cards in your burn deck though. So we're sacrificing getting a lot of direct damage for a little direct damage plus an effect. It's some fringe stuff to make this work. Instead of 3 damage for 1 mana, we're only getting 1 damage for each mountain we tap to cast one of these. Now, that's still 7 damage if you do a Magma Jet and then next turn play a Thunderous Wrath, but that's just barely above the 6 damage standard going rate for playing 2 burn spells in a deck, and it is right at that 6 damage if you're using the Spark Jolt, 1 damage, and the Thunderous Wrath for the 5. And being able to get those so everything works with your scries, it's gotta go right. Most of the time, you're going to be drawing something other than Thunderous Wrath after you put a card on the bottom of your library. Maybe you're thinking, I want to increase the odds of drawing a Thunderous Wrath. I'll put a full playset in. Well, if you do that, though, you're more likely to have it be a dead card in your opener. So, well, let's not play 4 of them. But if we're not playing a full playset, do we really want to be wasting 8 other card slots in our deck dedicated mainly to scrying? And if we aren't scrying, well, why do we have this card, etc.? Thunderous Wrath is a paradox that's conclusion is this. This card is bad. However, this card is fun. It's like the Hail Mary of burn spells. I made this ugly, inefficient monster mono-red deck. I took it to my local game store several times, and it cost me some games. I won't lie, I saw it several times in that opening hand and wished it was something else. But it did win me a few too, and those are some of my favorite victories as a red mage. Those are the games where the opponent is baffled by how little money you spent on some of your cards and the lack of skill you have at deck building, playing something unoptimized. The kind of deck where the top deck does the talking and the board states don't matter. When you play Thunderous Wrath for its miracle cost off the top, you feel like the star of any of the trading card animes where you may not know your deck or how to win using a perfect strategy, and you may just be the kid going, my grandpa made this deck, I have to trust it. Then your next draw just defeats everything. Your opponents go, how is it even possible? As their life total goes to 0, and their shady overlord looks on from his secret fortress in disgust. I guess to me, cards like Thunderous Wrath, they represent that spontaneous passion I enjoy in my Magic games as a red player, and the spontaneous passion I enjoy in my life. Direct damage and burn spells in general do something I want more of in my life, having simplicity and purpose. And I joked about playing these inefficient cards, but as a burn player or a red player, it takes more strategy than it gets credit for, getting the most mileage out of the fewer cards you see a game. And I enjoy that it's one of the simplest ways to play a game that has the win condition reduce the opponent's life total down to 0. You're now 3 damage closer to winning with every card you play. So back to talking about play with fire. I saw on the Magic the Gathering subreddit that someone was surprised that no card has had this name before, which is a good sign, I think, because play with fire just sounds like a Magic card. It's a common phrase you hear, and I like common phrases on Magic cards, because then when you're in the real world and you hear someone say the phrase play with fire, I'll think of this card and it'll be fun. Now, you don't want too many cliches and too many cliche card names, but I think play with fire's in that good middle spot. Only 7 other cards printed in Magic history have had the word play in their name, 2 of which were from unsets, and 1 of which is for conspiracy. The only red card with play in the card name is Devil's Play. Devil's Play costs X and 1 red mana. It's a sorcery. Devil's Play deals X damage to any target. And it has a flashback cost of X, red, red, red. And then if we expand the definition of the word play being in the name of a card, you get Devil's Playground too. It is 4 generic mana and 2 red for a sorcery. Put 4 1/1 red devil creature tokens onto the battlefield. They have, when this creature dies, it deals 1 damage to target creature or player. So both those cards have devil in the name as well, and now we got Play with Fire, which has a devil in the artwork. Why is play associated with devils in Magic the Gathering? Is playing and having fun from the devil? That's quite a Puritan message from this trading card game. So now that we have Play with Fire, am I going to be able to make a Thunderous Wrath modern deck? Probably not yet. I might try anyways, though. I plan to pick up a playset of Play with Fire when it releases in the new set, and at Uncommon, I don't expect that price to be too bad to do that. Play with Fire is the new best 2 damage, 1 red instant in the game. That's very specific, but hey, as a red player, I find it encouraging. So that's it for this episode of Red Decks Win. Play mountains, climb mountains, conquer mountains.